The alien princess listened to the old stories as a child, but she never thought they could be true. Her governess would read the tales by candlelight. She spoke of a human warrior who came to Earth when the planet faced its darkest hour. She defended millions with courage and honor. The young princess smiled at these tales, but she treated them as bedtime stories meant to comfort a restless soul. In her mind, humans were a distant legend, as distant as the stars themselves. Now, on the eve of her coronation, the princess moved through marble halls lined with statues of her ancestors. The air smelled of incense and fresh flowers. Courtiers, in silken robes, bowed low as she passed. She wore a gown of pale blue that shimmered like morning light on water. Her silver hair was pinned with a crystal tiara, yet behind her calm expression, a part of her longed for something more than ceremony and courtesy. She spent her days studying statecraft, learning the languages of rival worlds, and practicing the art of diplomacy. Her teachers praised her quick mind and graceful manner. She was to be a ruler who would guide her people into a new age of peace and prosperity. Still, she could not shake the feeling that destiny had something unexpected in store. That morning, she rose before dawn to walk the palace gardens. The dew on alien roses glowed faintly in the dim light. She inhaled the cool air and let her thoughts wander back to those old tales. What if a human warrior did exist beyond myth? What if he still lived somewhere among the stars? She dismissed the questions with a small laugh and continued along the path, her footsteps echoing on the marble tiles. At midday, the grand hall rang with applause as dignitaries from across the galaxy arrived. Ambassadors in decorated armor stood beside envoys dressed in formal suits and flowing robes. All had come to honor the princess and witness her oath. She greeted each with a gentle nod and a clear, confident voice. "Welcome to our world," she said, her tone warm and sincere. As the sun set, the ceremony began. The high priest chanted words older than memory. Torches burned with pale blue flames along the walls. The princess stepped forward and placed her hand on the ancient scepter. Pride filled her chest as she spoke the vow to protect her people and uphold justice. In that moment, she felt the weight of her ancestors on her shoulders, but she also felt strength and purpose. After the feast, when the guests had departed and the halls were quiet, the princess retreated to her private chambers. She removed her tiara and let her hair fall free around her shoulders. She sat by a window that overlooked the city lights. Each light was a home, a family, a life she was sworn to protect. Her thoughts drifted again to the human warrior. She wondered if he would ever cross her path. Would his presence change her world? Minutes later, the seals of her door slid open, and her chief guard entered. His uniform was spotless, and his face was set in a serious expression. "Your Highness," he said, bowing, "we have received a distress call from one of our diplomatic ships. They're under attack in the Vela system." Her heart skipped a beat. "What happened?" she asked, standing quickly. "Space pirates intercepted the convoy," he explained. "They demand our supplies and they threaten the lives of our crew. The ship's shields are failing. We have the coordinates here." He handed her a small holoprojector that glowed in her palm. She activated it and saw the ship's image flicker. Flames licked along its hull. She felt a surge of fear, but she pushed it aside. "Prepare a rescue vessel," she ordered. "I will accompany the team." The guard hesitated. "With all respect, your coronation was today. Tradition forbids you from leaving the capital until tomorrow." She met his gaze with calm determination. "My duty is to protect our people, wherever they may be," she said. "The pirates will not wait for ceremonies to end." Within minutes, she donned a sleek uniform designed for space travel. Its dark fabric was trimmed in silver. She strapped on a sidearm at her hip and fastened the communicator to her wrist. The engines of her personal ship roared to life moments later. As the vessel lifted from the palace landing pad, the princess watched the city shrink below her. She felt a thrill she had never known before. The next step of her journey was about to begin, and she would face it head-on, whether the human warrior was myth or reality. Ask Chatchetsi Princess's rescue ship cut through the silence of space, its engines humming steadily. She stared at the holodisplay on the control panel. The diplomatic convoy lay just ahead, battered and wounded. She felt tension not in her chest, but she steadied her breathing. The call had said under attack by Vela pirates. She knew pirates were ruthless. She gripped the armrest and whispered, "Hold together." As they drew near, the scene came alive in pale blue glow. Debris floated around the largest transport, its hull scarred by laser blasts. Smaller escort vessels darted around it, their shields flickering like dying stars. The princess's guards, clad in dark armor, fired back at unseen foes. Sparks bloomed on the transport's surface with each hit. She watched as a laser bolt struck her guard ship, sending it spiraling away. Her mind raced. She had to act. Prepare. Boarding party, she ordered, her voice calm but firm. The chief guard bowed and relayed commands. The princess slipped on her helmet and fastened it tight. She remembered her coronation gown and tiara, now replaced by practical armor. She looked at her reflection in the glass visor, saw only duty. In her eyes, the boarding hatch slid open with a hiss, and she stepped onto the shuttle platform beside her guards. Inside the shuttle, the air smelled faintly of metal and ozone. The pilots guided them toward the transport's breach point. The princess stood ready, sidearm in hand, though she hoped not to use it. She trusted her guards. Their faces were set, mouths firm. They landed with a soft thud on the deck of the transport. Alarms blared. Red lights bathed the narrow corridor. The princess led the way, each step echoing. She could hear shouts ahead dot around. A corner, they found wounded crew members huddled behind a bulkhead. A pirate cruiser had boarded. The pirates wore dark helmets and ragged armor. They swept the corridor with charged batons and blasters. One pirate raised his weapon at a terrified envoy. The princess acted on instinct. She raised her sidearm and called, "Stop." The pirates turned, startled. Guards flanked the princess, their rifles trained. The pirates hesitated, then fled deeper into the ship. The princess motioned to the envoy. "Help is here," she said softly. Medical drones arrived on her signal, tending to wounded. She felt relief. The transport crew cried out with gratitude, but the pirates had breached the command center. No one knew their number or leader. She pressed a communicator. "We need more help." Static answered. She frowned. Their long-range channels were jammed. The pirates wanted to isolate them. Suddenly the corridor behind her filled with the roar of engines. All weapons trained on the hatch. A sleek human vessel appeared outside a window. Its design was graceful and strong. Then a figure stepped through a sliding door on the deck behind the princess. He wore simple armor, dark and unadorned. A human. The princess's breath caught. The stories were true. The human moved with purpose. He raised his weapon and fired. The shots were precise and controlled. Each blast disabled pirate weapons without harming walls or crew. The pirates tried to regroup, but the human was calm. He disarmed them with quick moves and clear strategy. Within moments, the remaining pirates surrendered or fled. The princess watched in awe as the warrior guided the crew to safety. After the fight, the human knelt to inspect a wounded guard. His helmet was off, revealing kind eyes and dusty hair. He spoke softly as he patched a cut on the guard's arm. The soldier smiled. "Thank you," he said. The princess stepped forward, her heart fluttering. She said, "I am Princess Soraya." The human stood and bowed. "Ed has had," he said. "I am Captain Jason Reed, at your service." She felt her breath still, hearing an honest voice. The wounded crew began to cheer. The princess turned away to hide her excitement. She thought of the coronation hall, the old tales, and the myths she once dismissed. Captain Reed moved through the injured, offering water and comfort. His confidence was steady, but there was no arrogance. He treated each person with respect. The princess realized that this human warrior was more than strength and skill. He carried compassion like a shield. As the crew prepared to depart the transport, the princess approached Captain Reed again. She asked, "Why help us?" He met her eyes and smiled gently. "Because your people needed help," he replied. "And I do what all humans must, stand by those in need." Soraya felt a spark of hope. She nodded and said, "Thank you, Captain Reed." He bowed once more before turning to the bridge. The princess returned to her shuttle, her mind racing. She would bring him back to her palace. She would learn his story and she would know the truth of the myth. The human warrior was real, and now he would change her world forever. The shuttle carrying Princess Soraya and Captain Jason Reed glided toward the palace landing bay. The airlock hissed open and they stepped onto the polished floor. Soraya kept her gaze forward, though her mind raced. She led the way through wide corridors lit by soft lamps. Jason followed with quiet respect, his armor replaced by simple clothes that fit this world's style. He carried a satchel with his few possessions and wore a calm expression. They reached a grand hall where Soraya's advisors waited. Their eyes widened at the sight of the human warrior. Whispers passed among them. Is he truly the one from legend? Soraya raised her hand to quiet the crowd. She motioned for Jason to come forward. He bowed his head politely, and the advisors bowed in return. None spoke aloud. The silence stretched until Soraya spoke in a firm, clear voice. "This is Captain Jason Reed. He saved our people today." An advisor stepped forward, his tone formal. Your Highness, we are honored to meet the warrior of whom the legends speak. Jason inclined his head. I am honored by your welcome, he said softly. His simple words held weight. Soraya observed him as he spoke. She felt pride in introducing him, but also relief that he showed humility. After the formal greeting, Soraya guided Jason to a private chamber. The room had tall windows that looked over the palace gardens. Moonlight streamed through pale curtains. Soraya offered him water in a delicate cup. Jason accepted and smiled. Thank you, princess, he said. Soraya sat beside him on a low bench. She studied his face in the dim light. He seemed both strong and gentle, like a calm sea after a storm. You saved many lives today, Soraya said. You risked your own for people you did not know. Jason shook his head. We all owe our strength to others, he replied. When someone is in danger, you help if you can. Soraya nodded slowly. She thought of her own life, shielded by traditions and ceremony. She realized that Jason's simple belief in helping others was a power greater than any armor or weapon. Talked for hours. Jason asked about Soraya's world, its customs, its history, and the stories of her ancestors. She described her coronation and the palace rituals. He listened with genuine interest, often leaning forward. When she asked about his life, he spoke of Earth. He told her of human cities, of families, and of battles where humans stood together against fear. His words painted pictures of hope and community. Soraya felt a change within her. The duties she once carried as burdens now felt like bridges. To connect worlds, she realized that her people's peace had been built on isolation. Jason's arrival had shown her that true strength came from unity, not fear of the unknown. She decided then to share her vision with the court, but she knew she needed more time to shape her plan. As dawn approached, Soraya offered Jason a place to rest. She led him to a simple guest suite. The room had a soft bed, a small desk, and a window overlooking the rising sun. Jason thanked her and prepared for sleep. Before he lay down, he turned to Soraya. Your people are fortunate to have a leader like you, he said. Soraya paused at the door. She looked at him, the first human warrior she ever met. She thought of myth and reality, of tales told by candlelight, and of how one real person could reshape an entire world's destiny. She smiled and whispered, "Good night, Captain Reed." Then she left him to rest, her heart filled with hope and a quiet excitement for the days ahead. The palace settled into silence. Soraya returned to her private balcony. The sky was streaked with pink and gold. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges. The court's response to her plans, the rival factions, schemes, and the questions of tradition versus change. But she also knew she would not face them alone. The human warrior was here, and together they would chart a course toward a future no legend could predict. The next morning, Princess Soraya rose early and dressed in a simple gown of pale green. She moved through the quiet corridors to find Captain Jason Reed in the great hall. He stood by a long table scattered with maps of the galaxy, his dark hair tied back to keep it from his face. As she entered, he looked up and smiled. Soraya felt a warm rush of relief at seeing him calm and steady. "Good morning, Captain Reed," she said softly. "I would like to show you our council chamber. I want you to speak to my advisors about your world." Jason inclined his head. "I would be honored," he replied. Together they walked through carved doors into a tall hall where voices whispered at every turn. The air was rich with the scent of polished wood and incense. Soraya's advisors stood in a semicircle, robes rustling as they shifted. An elder advisor cleared his throat. "Your Highness, this is unexpected," he said. "Why bring a human before the council?" Soraya raised her chin. "Because we must learn from him," she said. "His actions showed us a strength beyond any weapon. He taught us that compassion can be as powerful as steel." The advisor frowned but did not speak further. Soraya motioned to Jason. He stepped forward, his posture calm and respectful. "Honored members of the council," he began, his voice clear. "I come from Earth, a world of many people and many challenges. Humans learned long ago that we survive by helping each other. When one of us is hurt, we tend their wounds. When one of us is afraid, we stand by their side. Strength is not about power alone, it is about caring for those who need us." His words echoed in the silent hall. An advisor in crimson robes raised a hand. "You speak of weakness," he said sharply. "Our people value skill above all. We rely on our warrior legions, our defense systems. Why should compassion matter more than force?" Jason met the man's gaze. "Because force without compassion can destroy what it is meant to protect, he replied. A warrior who fights only for glory will fight alone. A warrior who fights for others will never be alone. Soraya watched as the council absorbed his words. She saw doubts flicker in their eyes. Some whispered to each other. Others remained stern. She felt a smile touch her lips. For the first time, tradition felt alive, not as a weight, but as a tool. To build something new. The council elder cleared his throat again. Princess, he said, we will consider these ideas. For now, we should honor Captain Reed's bravery. He stepped back, and the council bowed. Soraya nodded in gratitude. After the meeting, Soraya guided Jason through the palace gardens. Flowers of violet and white bloomed under the morning. Son, she said, you did well. Jason shrugged. I only spoke my truth, he said, but your courage brought me here. Soraya looked at him, thinking how different their worlds were, yet how their beliefs could unite them as they walked. Servants carried trays of fruit and tea. Soraya picked a ripe melon slice and handed it to Jason. He accepted it with a grin. We have much in common, he said. People everywhere enjoy simple kindness. They laughed softly, and for a moment the weight of politics seemed far away. Later that afternoon, a private tutor arrived with ancient scrolls. Soraya and Jason sat at a marble table as she unrolled them. The scrolls told of the first humans who traveled to the stars, of battles fought alongside alien allies. Jason traced his finger over images of human ships, his voice soft as he explained the symbols. Soraya listened, imagining the bravery of those long-ago travelers. She realized that legends were living memories, and that she now lived one. Meanwhile, in a darkened corridor of the palace, members of a rival faction gathered. They whispered of the princess's new friend, and the changes he inspired. This human is dangerous, one hissed. He speaks against our traditions. Another frowned. We must act before Soraya overturns our way of life. Their eyes burned with fear and ambition. They vowed to find a way to stop these new ideas before they could take root. Unaware of their plotting, Soraya returned to her chamber at dusk. She found Jason waiting by the window, watching the twin moons rise. He turned as she entered. You look thoughtful, he said. Soraya crossed the room and stood beside him. She watched the moons reflect in his eyes. I think of my people, she said, of how I can lead them to a future where fear does not rule. Jason placed a hand on her shoulder. You will guide them well, he said. You have the wisdom to balance strength with compassion. She felt comfort in his words. She looked at the sky, then back at him. Thank you, she whispered, for standing with me. Jason smiled. I stand with your people, he said, for they are worthy, and for you, princess. Soraya felt her heart swell with hope. That night, Soraya slept peacefully, dreaming of a world united by trust. But shadows moved in the palace corridors, and secret plans formed in hidden rooms. The next challenge would test her courage, and her faith in Jason's words. Yet, as the moons slid across the sky, Soraya knew she was ready. Together with the human warrior, she would shape a destiny no myth could contain. The palace courtyard was alive with celebration. Colorful banners fluttered in the warm breeze. Musicians played gentle melodies on stringed instruments. Courtiers and citizens gathered to honor Princess Soraya and her brave ally, Captain Jason Reed. Tables were heavy with sweet fruits and spiced breads. Lanterns hung from silver posts, casting a soft glow as twilight fell. Soraya stood at the center of the courtyard, dressed in a flowing gown of pale gold. She smiled at her people, her heart full of pride and hope. Jason stood beside her, his simple clothes set off by a ceremonial sash. He bowed courteously to the guests and shared easy laughter with the children who approached him. Behind the festive scene, shadows stirred in the palace corridors. A small group of courtiers, secretly aligned with the rival faction, watched the celebration unfold. They whispered of ancient customs and the danger of change. One of them, a man with narrow eyes and a bitter smile, held a folded note in his hand. Tonight, he said softly, we will remind her that tradition is our true strength. His companions nodded, their faces cold with determination. They had studied the palace maps and learned the patterns of the guards. They knew that at this hour, attention would be on the ceremony, not on the silent steps moving among the crowd. As Princess Soraya and Jason greeted a group of envoys, a horn sounded in the distance. The music paused, and the crowd turned in surprise. On the far side of the courtyard, a pavilion stood empty, draped in white cloth. The princess raised an eyebrow. An offering for you, she said, stepping forward. Two attendants pulled away the cloth to reveal a carved statue of an ancient queen. The crowd applauded. Soraya dipped into a graceful curtsy. Jason clapped politely, scanning the pavilion's edges out of habit. Then, without warning, torches along the pavilion's border dimmed. Two of the princess's chief guards slumped to the ground, their drinks laced with a fast-acting sedative. Panic rippled through the nearby attendees. Jason saw the guards collapse and shouted a warning. "Look out," he cried. Soraya turned, startled. The rival courtiers sprang into action. They seized the princess's arms and forced a thick hood over her head. She struggled, but the sedative in the guards' drinks spread quickly through her own veins. Her vision blurred, and she slumped into the arms of the captors. Jason lunged forward, but a guard grabbed his arm. "Stay back," the guard barked. Jason twisted free and dashed toward Soraya, but more conspirators formed a barrier between him and the pavilion. Torches guttered as if a sudden wind had swept through. The music stopped. Citizens cried out in alarm. Jason reached the edge of the crowd. "Princess," he called, but his voice was lost in the chaos. He watched helplessly as the captors lifted Soraya and carried her through a side gate that led deeper into the palace grounds. The courtyard erupted into confusion. Envoys drew their blades, and palace guards moved to surround the area. Jason shook off the stunned guard who had tried to stop him. He ran toward the main gate, but it slammed shut before he could reach it. He pressed his hand against the cool metal, his mind racing. "They cannot escape," he muttered. He activated his communicator. "This is Captain Reed. Princess Soraya has been taken through the south gate. I need every available guard to secure that route." Static crackled in response. Then a calm voice answered. "Understood, Captain. Sending units now." Jason nodded even though no one could see him. He sprinted toward the side corridors, pausing only to grab a blaster and secure it at his side. Moonlight streamed through high windows, outlining the grand pillars and marble floors. He pressed against the wall, moving silently, listening for footsteps. As he turned a corner, he caught a glimpse of the hooded figures. They carried the princess between them, her arms draped at her sides. Jason increased his pace, determined, but cautious. He could not charge in blindly. He needed a plan. He spotted a service door marked maintenance and slipped inside. The narrow passage was lit by dim red lights. He opened a datapad on his wrist and pulled up the palace schematics. There, a hidden tunnel ran beneath the courtyard and led to a forgotten armory. If he could reach the armory, he could find help and possibly disable the palace's main defenses. He moved swiftly through the tunnel, listening to the distant echo of footsteps. He came to a junction and paused. To the left, the passage led downward toward the armory. To the right, it led toward the dungeons. He chose left, stepping carefully over the smooth stone. The tunnel ended at a heavy door reinforced with ancient runes. Jason pried it open using a small tool from his satchel. The door creaked, but held firm. He whispered an apology to anyone who might have been sealed within 4 centuries, then pushed it wide. Inside, racks of historic weapons and armor glinted in the starlight that filtered through a small grate. Jason moved to the central console, and keyed in a sequence he had observed in the palace's security vault earlier. The runes on the door required a matching code. The locks clicked, and the door slid shut behind him. He felt the power of the armory hum under his fingertips. He scanned the racks and found ceremonial armor designed for palace guards, reinforced with modern alloys. He donned a helmet and strapped on a shield and rifle. His simple clothes were gone. He was now more than a visitor, he was a rescuer. Himself. He opened the armory's side door and stepped back into the tunnel. He tapped his communicator. "I have reinforcements. Prepare to secure the princess and contain the conspirators." A crackling voice responded. "We're on our way, Captain, be safe." Jason exhaled. His heart pounded, but his resolve was stronger than fear. He would find Soraya and bring her back. As he advanced through the winding passage, the distant lanterns of the courtyard faded behind him. Ahead lay darkness and danger, but also hope. The human warrior moved forward, determined to face whatever awaited him, for the sake of the princess, who had changed his life. The tunnel was narrow and silent as Captain Jason Reed moved forward, his steps echoing on the cold stone. He checked his rifle and shield, then slowed as he neared a low grate of light. Beyond it, he could hear muffled voices and the sound of chains. He pressed his ear to the wall, straining to understand. The conspirators spoke in hushed tones, their voices sharp with anger. "We must finish before dawn," one hissed. "The princess will never see the light of day again," another muttered. "We will restore true rule without her foolish ideas." Jason's jaw tightened. He tapped his communicator twice to signal the guards, 2 taps for prepare to breach. Then he pressed on, ready to face whatever lay beyond. At the end of the tunnel, a heavy door barred his way. Through a small window, he saw a dim chamber where Soraya knelt, still hooded, against a stone wall. 3 conspirators stood around her, weapons drawn. Jason counted them quietly. He held his breath and placed his shield against the door. With a sharp command on his communicator, he charged forward. The door swung inward at his push. His shield clanged against stone, drawing the men's attention. "Get him!" one shouted. They lunged toward him, but Jason was faster. He raised his rifle and fired a stun bolt that crackled against the wall behind them. The first conspirator froze, body rigid, then fell. The second threw himself aside, but Jason blocked his weapon with the shield and disarmed him with a swift strike. The third advanced on Soraya, but Jason darted between them, raising his shield just in time. The dagger struck metal instead of flesh. Jason twisted, and the conspirator dropped to his knees, weapon clattering on the floor. Sarah stirred as the hood fell from her head. She blinked at the light and then saw Jason standing between her and danger. Relief flooded her face. "Jason," she whispered. He knelt and gently helped her to her feet. She brushed dust from her gown and looked at the fallen conspirators, then at the hidden guards who poured in behind him. The palace guards secured the conspirators, fastening them with energy cuffs. Soraya's chief guard appeared, bowing deeply. "Your Highness, you are safe," he said. Soraya nodded, voice steady but soft. "Thank you," she said to Jason. "You came for me." Jason offered his hand. She took it, and he guided her toward the door. Outside the chamber, the tunnel opened into a wide corridor. The night air was cool, carrying distant sounds of alarm. Lanterns flickered, and palace guards formed ranks along the walls. Jason and Soraya walked hand in hand, their steps confident. Whispers and gasps followed them, but the sight of the returned princess lifted the crowd's spirits. Soraya paused before the nearest guard. "Thank you," she said. The guard bowed, eyes bright. She turned to Jason. "We could not have done this without you." Jason smiled, shaking his head. "Your people are brave," he said. "I only joined them." They reached the courtyard, where dawn's first light began to brighten the sky. Courtiers and citizens gathered, watching in silence. Soraya climbed a low dais beside her throne. She raised her hand for attention. All eyes turned to her, and the air was still. "Today," she began, her voice clear and warm, "we face the danger of those who fear change. But we also remember that courage and unity can overcome any threat. My friend Captain Jason Reed showed us that helping others is the greatest strength." She gestured to Jason, who stood beside her, shield slung on his back. A soft cheer rose from the crowd, then grew into applause. Soraya's advisors stepped forward. The elder advisor spoke first. "Your Highness, you have shown wisdom and bravery," he said. "We pledge our loyalty and support for your vision of unity." One by one, the other advisors echoed his words. Soraya's rival faction listened in stunned silence, their plans undone by the very courage they sought to suppress. As the crowd celebrated, Soraya led Jason through the gates to the palace gardens. The roses glowed in the morning light, dew sparkled on petals. She turned to him, her eyes bright. "I promised we would face this together," she said. Jason nodded. "And we will," he replied. "Your people have shown they stand by you." Soraya smiled and placed her hand on his arm. She felt gratitude deeper than words. They walked among the flowers until Jason stopped. He looked at Soraya with respect and something more, admiration born of shared trials. "Soraya," he said quietly, "you inspire me. Your courage and kindness are a beacon." She felt warmth in her chest. She knew that beyond this moment lay more challenges, rebuilding trust, strengthening alliances, and guiding her people into a new era. But she no longer felt doubt. The princess and the human warrior returned to the palace, ready to begin the work of peace. Soraya thought of the myths she once believed were mere stories. Now she carried a living legend by her side, a friend who taught her that true strength came from compassion and unity. Together they would shape a future no myth could contain. The morning sun warmed the palace terraces as Princess Soraya and Captain Jason Reed stood before a gathering of ambassadors from nearby worlds. Silk banners snapped in the gentle breeze, and the air was sweet with the scent of alien blossoms. Soraya met Jason's eyes and nodded. It was time to show the galaxy what unity could achieve. She stepped forward and addressed the assembly. Her voice was steady, and her words carried the weight of her journey. She spoke of courage found in unexpected places, and of a human warrior whose compassion had saved her life and renewed her people's faith. She urged the ambassadors to consider alliances built on trust rather than fear. Jason watched, pride in his posture but humility in his eyes. After her speech, the ambassadors exchanged thoughtful glances. One elder from the Vrexian Empire spoke first. He praised Soraya's vision and offered a trade agreement to share medical technology. Another envoy proposed a joint patrol fleet to guard against pirate attacks. Each pledge of support echoed across the marble courtyard. Soraya's heart swelled as she realized her people would no longer stand alone. Jason stepped forward next. He spoke simply of Earth's own struggles and triumphs. He described how humans learned cooperation when they faced the greatest challenges, rebuilding cities after storms, exploring unknown lands, and standing by each other in times of loss. His words painted a picture of unity that resonated with the crowd. Whispers of approval rose among the ambassadors, and some smiled warmly at one another. As the ceremony ended, Soraya guided Jason to a quiet alcove overlooking the city. She took his hand and said, "Today we have shown that myth can become reality." Jason squeezed her hand gently. "You made it real," he replied. "Your courage opened the door." They stood side by side, watching colored light dance on distant towers. Back in the palace, rebuilding work began at once. Craftsmen repaired holes damaged by the conspirators' raid. Scholars translated human texts and shared them in the royal library. Soraya met daily with her council, guiding each decision. Jason joined her at the table, offering insights from his world. Together they drafted new laws that valued kindness, fairness, and mutual aid. Seraia, single quotes Chaos Council, once divided, now worked as a team. The rival faction had been arrested but offered to serve the new vision if pardoned. Soraya showed mercy, believing that forgiveness could heal old wounds. The conspirators were given tasks to restore public trust. They rebuilt damaged bridges, planted gardens in the poorer districts, and taught lessons on unity to young students. The people watched and slowly warmed to their changed hearts. One evening, Soraya walked through the palace gardens alone, reflecting on how far she and her people had come. Lanterns glowed softly along the paths. The fountains sang with gentle ripples. She paused by a statue of the first queen who had forged a peace treaty centuries ago. Soraya laid her hand on the cool stone and whispered thanks for the strength she had found. Jason joined her then, carrying 2 cups of warm tea. He handed one to Soraya and stood quietly beside her. They drank in silence, content in each other's company. After a moment, Soraya said, "The galaxy is listening now. Our example will shape the future." Jason nodded. "And wherever you lead, I will follow," he said. News of their success spread quickly. Neighboring worlds began to send envoys to visit. Merchants arrived with goods, rare and beautiful. Artists painted scenes of Soraya and Jason standing together in triumph. Children learned new stories about the human warrior and the princess who dared to believe. Songs were composed, and theaters staged plays based on their adventure. As the weeks passed, Soraya and Jason grew closer. They spent time in the training yard, where Jason taught palace guards human combat techniques that emphasized defense and restraint. Soraya practiced beside him, learning moves that combined grace with purpose. The guards cheered when they executed drills together, proud of their princess and her friend. One morning, Jason received a message from Earth. It spoke of new missions to explore uncharted space. He studied the holodisplay thoughtfully. Soraya saw his frown and asked what troubled him. He said, "Earth needs explorers to learn and share knowledge. I must return one day to help my people." Soraya felt a quiet ache at the thought of losing him. She nodded, understanding his duty. That afternoon they walked along the palace ramparts. Below them, city life carried on in peace. Ships landed and departed. Laughter and music floated up. Soraya took Jason's hand and said, "Our worlds have found friendship. You have given us hope." He turned to her and replied, "And you have given me a home among the stars." They embraced, the wind carrying their promise across the city. In the Grand Hall, the next day, a fleet of human explorers arrived. Their ships gleamed under alien suns. Ambassadors from Earth stepped onto the platform, greeting Soraya with bows. Jason stood beside them, smiling with pride. The ceremony marked the beginning of a shared journey into the unknown, a journey of discovery, trust, and lasting friendship. As the sun set on the celebration, Soraya and Jason stood on the palace balcony. The sky glowed with colors unseen on Earth. They looked out together, side by side, ready to face whatever the future held. No legend had ever told of a warrior and a princess who changed the galaxy. But their story had begun, and its final chapters were theirs too, right?